Did you know that fear, that paralyzing feeling that stops you from acting, is simply your brain's way of trying to protect you? Thousands of years before neuroscience explained how the brain works, the Bible already provided powerful teachings on how to overcome this barrier. Today's story will surprise you. We will explore how a prophet faced decades of challenges using strategies that are now scientifically proven. And the most incredible part is that you can apply them in your life to overcome any obstacle. Imagine having the discipline to take action even when everything seems impossible. Sounds grand, doesn't it? But the truth is that by understanding these ancient secrets and combining them with modern knowledge, you can reprogram your mind to conquer fear and achieve great results. Are you ready to discover how this is possible? Since ancient times, prophets have faced obstacles that feel very familiar to us today: procrastination, fear, and self-sabotage. Imagine someone who, even knowing their mission, hesitated because the internal barriers seemed insurmountable. The Bible presents these figures not just as spiritual icons, but as individuals who learn to master their minds to take action. Today, science explains something similar. The brain avoids what requires effort because it seeks to save energy. Fascinating, isn't it? Even great prophets face this inner struggle. Now stop and think. How many times have you promised yourself to start something important, but tomorrow felt more inviting? This happens because the brain has an ancestral programming of self-protection. However, in the Bible, stories teach us that overcoming this resistance is not about brute force, but about small, continuous steps. An example of this is the prophets who, despite their fears, acted by focusing on the task instead of the final result. Today, neuroscience calls this deliberate action. When we act despite fear, the brain learns to reconfigure its responses. Another fascinating point is how emotional and spiritual contexts influence this struggle. The prophets used practices such as prayer and fasting, not as empty rituals, but as tools for mental and emotional strengthening. Similar practices today, like meditation or deep breathing, are scientifically proven to reduce anxiety and increase focus. Imagine dedicating just 10 minutes of silence in the morning to organize your thoughts before a busy day. Small practices, big results. The most curious part? These examples show us that significant changes begin with controlling the brain and emotions. No one is born with a mind programmed for success, but everyone can train it. By understanding that even the prophets needed to overcome their internal limitations, you realize that anyone can follow this path. The question is, how can you turn these lessons into practical actions in your daily life? Imagine a prophet who spent 30 years facing opposition, doubts, and exhaustion. Instead of giving up, he remained focused on his mission, overcoming both physical and emotional challenges. This story is not just a lesson in faith, but also one of resilience. Today, neuroscience explains that when we act despite fear, we create new pathways in the brain. That prophet used strategies many would call mental hacks. He chose discipline over comfort and let go of immediate results, focusing only on the process. This ability to act even without certainty about what would come next is something we can all practice. For instance, instead of waiting for motivation to arrive to start a project, take the first action, even if it's small. The prophet didn't wait for grand signs. He used faith and action as his guides. Discipline, in this case, wasn't a burden, but a tool to advance one day at a time. Modern science calls this consistent micro-actions, small daily habits that over time produce surprising results. In addition to discipline, detachment from the outcome was fundamental. Often, we get caught up in expectations. What if I fail? What if it's not worth it? That prophet understood that the outcome isn't always under our control, but effort and consistency are. Today, you can apply this by setting small, realistic daily goals, focusing on what you can control. It's not about achieving something grand tomorrow, but about building a little bit each day. Finally, the spiritual practices used by the prophet, prayer, fasting, and meditation, strengthened his mind against adversity. Today, studies show that prayer reduces stress and improves self-control. Fasting, in turn, helps with mental clarity and discipline, even being used in personal development practices. If he managed to face 30 years of challenges using these tools, imagine what you could achieve by applying just a few of them in your daily life. The question is, what happens when we start acting today, even with fear? At the most critical point of his journey, the prophet saw the situation reach a level that seemed impossible to reverse. In a scenario of constant opposition, physical exhaustion, and emotional pressure, he did something that changed everything. He used his faith and daily habits to train his mind. It wasn't an instant miracle, but a combination of spiritual practice and practical action. This turning point shows that when we strengthen the mind, it becomes capable of resisting the chaos around us. The prophet teaches us that when facing the impossible, the key lies in moving forward with determination. Interestingly, modern science confirms something similar: gradual exposure to fear, a technique neuroscientists call progressive exposure, rewires the brain circuits linked to anxiety. The prophet didn't just face external challenges, but also trained his nervous system to cope with fear. A practical example of this is someone afraid of public speaking, starting by practicing in small groups. Confidence grows, and the brain learns to react with less resistance. The lesson is clear: confronting fear little by little is the only way to overcome it. Another turning point was the combination of faith and constant practice. While many people wait for an external change, the prophet decided to act internally first. Prayer and fasting were tools that helped him regulate stress and strengthen his mindset. Today, we know that these practices have concrete effects. Prayer strengthens areas of the brain responsible for emotional control, while fasting increases focus and discipline. What once seemed purely spiritual is, in fact, a powerful science. This example of transformation proves something fundamental. Great changes begin with small actions. A daily habit, like meditating for 5 minutes or writing a priority list, can become the turning point you've been searching for. The prophet demonstrated that it's possible not only to change oneself, but also to transform the surrounding environment, turning personal challenges into a movement that impacted an entire nation. The question remains, if he could do it, what's stopping you from starting? The great lesson from this story is that discomfort is part of the journey. While the brain naturally avoids difficult tasks, the prophet showed us that we need to accept discomfort and take action even when everything feels adverse. Today's small habits, like waking up early and starting the day with an important task, are ways to trick the mind and overcome natural resistance. It's interesting to realize that when we take the first step, the brain responds with a sense of accomplishment, encouraging us to keep going. Thus, simple actions can trigger discipline. Another valuable teaching is the importance of spiritual practices. Fasting, for example, was not just a religious ritual, but a way to train the mind and body to resist immediate impulses. Scientifically, fasting increases the production of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which are linked to focus and motivation. When applied strategically, it can be a powerful ally in the quest for discipline. A practical example would be starting with 12-hour fasts and observing how this impacts mental clarity and self-control. Additionally, daily prayer also plays a transformative role. Studies show that meditation and prayer strengthen the brain areas responsible for emotional control and resilience. The prophet used these tools not only to find peace, but also to stay focused on a greater purpose. In practice, you can apply this by dedicating 10 minutes of your day to prayer or guided meditation, helping to reduce anxiety and face challenges with a stronger mindset. Finally, this narrative challenges us to believe in the greater purpose behind obstacles. When we understand that challenges are part of the growth process, we can endure them more lightly. The prophet knew that his small daily actions had a significant impact on the future. Now think, what if you viewed each challenge as an opportunity to grow stronger? What would happen if you transformed your routine into a daily training ground for your mind and body? Now that you know the secrets that combine biblical teachings and modern science, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? How many times have you allowed fear and procrastination to steal your opportunities? It's time to challenge your brain, embrace discomfort, and act with discipline, just like the prophet did. Small actions, like starting your day with prayer or applying a strategic fast can transform your mind and your entire life. Are you ready to take control and face today's challenges with a stronger mindset? Leave a comment below sharing what holds you back from taking action, and let's work together to change that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you can keep learning powerful secrets like this one. Your success starts now.